due to Marcel being together with us, we will continue in English, and then we will have a short discussion in Norwegian afterwards. Now we are going into the students are going to the students in GK, the third year of architecture and landscape architecture at AHO, has been collaborating with Norsk Bolig- og Byplanlegging this entire fall. We got support from the Kommunal- og Moderniseringsdepartementet to use the students' work as a case into what we are working on or showing and discussing during these 2 days, and also to attach Marcel and Franco and also Einar who is here, Einar Lune, into the students' work and aligning in how we work and think about the urban project and the strategic planning in Norway, being able to resume these thoughts in a thematic number of plan, første nummeret av plan februar, which we're launching with a seminar in February and with a discussion around it, with the results. The students will also present their work in Hamar Bylag at 10th of December. And what we are going to see now is more or less of some of the urban ideas that has come up during so far. They have only been working 2 weeks on their project, and we have we due to time we have had not we are asking them kindly to present some of their thoughts, some of the students. It's not been a big, it's the students' work that are representing us is some parts of a very big studio. And together with us, we have Halvor Weider Ellefsen, who's coordinating the studio together with Giambattista Saccarotto, who is also here. Together they are coordinating the studio, and but Halvor will come up and present together with the students what they are doing in Hamar.
Takk. Takk. Er jeg på da? Ja. Okay, I'll continue in English. Introducing urbanism for architects is very challenging, particularly at AHO, where the first year is focusing mainly on the object. But the last 5 years, we've developed a studio that has tried to collaborate with different municipalities across Norway to make it as realistic as possible, so that the students can meet the mayor, meet the municipality, the bureaucrats, the planner, and the people that lives these places, of course. So we have been collaborating with Ås kommune, with Nes kommune, with Kongsberg, municipality of Kongsberg, last year with Lier kommune, and this year with Hamar. And since last year, we also combined the landscape and architectural education to get some synergies, not only because it's good for the students to learn to collaborate across the small gap between landscape and architecture, but also because this is the most efficient way to teach urbanism as we see it. We also have an approach to urbanism that is based on the physical aspects of the city in a morphological tradition. This is both a strategic approach because we believe in the strategies that, for example, Marcel Smets introduced earlier today, but also as a didactic tool to work with morphology and to then implement the complex reality of other disciplines on top. We find a very constructive way to go about this. We also could be said to have 2 main strains of teaching or research on the city. One deals with a regional city, the small node in the network of the Oslo region, mainly like Ås or Nes or Lier, while the other focuses on the heart of the city, for example, Kongsberg and Hamar. And the reason behind this focus is that a lot of the urban cores of Norwegian towns are changing due to the large-scale infrastructural reorganization that happens, where Hamar is a very important and contemporary example. What's going to happen within a few years is that the double track from Oslo is going to arrive in Hamar, but also end here for the decades to come. This is most of all a political decision, but it's also a result of a long and tiresome and conflicted debate in the city of Hamar that we have been trying to look into. Hamar looks like this and has a traditional quadrature center. It has these large-scale infrastructure. It's based on a plan by Sverre Pedersen from the 1920s that celebrate 100 years these years. And it has the challenges of most Norwegian towns present, which means that it's a very good example also for the students to look into. But in order to approach the project, we need some kind of problem here defined as the large-scale infrastructure that is going to change in the years to come. But we also would like to have a more ambitious approach looking forward. So we made two scenarios. One is the current scenario where the two tracks ends in Hamar. The other one is the scenario of what we call the next generation, maybe as much as 70, 80, 100 years into the future, where the railway is basically submerged underneath the city. And we base ourselves on the service and project that is been developed for this area by, among others, Alt Architecture that we also briefly addressed yesterday. So in order to make this researchable or designable, to base the approach to Hamar on the kind of physical reality of the town, we divided the city up in 5 transects, 5 strips that goes across the city from north to south, T1 to T5, that each represents quite distinct and different challenges in terms of urban development, urban form, and at least, and not the least, the relation between the water, harborfront, the infrastructure, and the city behind it, and the layer of kind of the car-based open city outside the central core. And you are all familiar, of course, with the challenges between these areas, as almost everyone has touched upon in the presentation today and yesterday. Our approach is also to go in a dialogue with Hamar municipality and say, while you have spent a lot of money and a lot of resources on an extremely knowledgeable and interesting material that service everything from the transformation of the infrastructure to densification to kind of VEPOR like analysis, demography, etc. We are lacking reports or investigations into the physical now of Hamar, what is already there in terms of physical form, including landscape, water system, geology, and of course, architecture. And we lack examples of the future of such projects. We all know the renderings of imagined future. We've seen so many of them that most people have gone blind. So what we are trying to do is to make physical projects for the future that are more in the tradition of research by design that Marcel referred to, that somehow not only illustrates but tests out the potential future in critical spaces identified along the transect by each group. And of course, this is a long and tiresome and frustrating process, of course, for students that are introduced to urbanism this semester, but we'll still like to show you some of the preliminary results from our mid-crit that Marcel participated on last week. And we have 4 representatives of the studio here, Stefano, Hanna, Fredrik, or Johannes, that is going to present their individual projects, starting with T1, jumping over T2, but also T3, T4, and T5 will be addressed. So welcome up, guys. And since the panel discussion is out, and this is more fun, frankly, so that is not a problem, we can also spend some minutes after their presentation to discuss this in Norwegian. But first, vær så god.
Yeah, this is my group. We are in Transit 1 in the future no growth scenario. It consists of, well, the group consists of Jonas Bjerke, Sten Stange, Mimmi Svensson, and myself is Stefano De Sante. So here is a mobility chart of whole Hamar, and it was fundamental to also see some of the problems that perhaps we can discuss with all the transects. And here we find some of the noise problems we have around the infrastructure and logistics. And it was also quite easy then to find our transect and how to define our transect. So as we see here, we have some facades that have passed the red zone or yellow zone for noise. But also at the same time, the same area consists of many open and quality zones. And this is a chart that shows exactly this. But the midway, well, the mid road here doesn't have it. So we wonder why, and we can actually look at the history of it, because it's the border of Hamar that it's called Hakkabäckvägen, which is Hakka Stream Road. Which defined the Hamar's border, and during growth it was just extended. So as we can hear at the name, it was actually a stream, but now it's a drainage line and also a part of some flood problem. As you can see, of course, at the coast, but also in the drainage lines. Yeah, the road is the main one here in the middle. But let's not forget the railway. And this is today's situation where it's placed. But in the future, it will be as we've been told that it's going to be underground, and we are left with a hill from the railway. So we wanted to use every part of this of this data for our project and try to use it to our as a solution instead of just a problem. So here we have the facades that can be transformation projects. We have the flood that can actually be our argument to dig up the drainage line and make a small stream or with percolation. And the hill we can actually works quite good against the flood problem. So we will keep that as well. And so we were trying to investigate how we're going to design the whole the whole area, and came up with this tactic where we see kind of north-south route, a west-east route that goes through the former railway, and the main point where they meet, the two former borders and now project. So this is a southern, well, the railway route that we can trying to imagine how we could have on one side some functions that could be connected with forestation, and the other side we have Mjösa, the water side. And this is the transversal section of it. As you see, it's the hill there, which is approximately 2 meters, and we're trying to set the human in center of it. So we're gonna like trying to enhance the hill and make a promenade there, and then some functions at the side. And the other route is along the river, and this was just to show how the facades around it, and where you can actually, and in the sections shows where actually we have possibilities to have put some programming. And the transversal section of it is also the same tactic, having the promenade and the route at the center, and making the 2 lane to 1 lane, to get rid of the noise problem, or at least make it lower. And we also have the stream at the side there, and we're not thinking about the big river, just a small stream that could actually handle some of the flood problem, but also give a connection to the underground. And the routes, they meet here at the main point, our focus point, and our focal point. And in that case, it's very interesting and very good to have references. This is Lesa de Palmeira of Álvaro Siza in Matosinhos, north of Porto, and the swimming pools there. And when analyzing it, we found that he has like a huge constructions, but it's very subtle in the same time. So we're trying to analyze and why it is that, and perhaps it's the enhancing of the topography and only using like small embedded points to the topography, and not building the whole facade freely. So we try to use the same type of tactics when planning the meeting point. And here you see we try to a solution of the infrastructure, mainly thinking about bikes and walking, but also of course cars, and trying to include that in our scenario, and also how to handle the water for the flood and everything. But also thanks to this analytics, we could actually use the same type of tactics and trying to enhance the topography and the water regulation and so on. And this is the section that shows this main point, this main focal point, and here you see the subterranean train road. And this is where we are at it now. So we have some areas that's going to be the green areas that we're trying to transform to maintain it as green, and we have the west-east, the same as we have the concept figure as we had as a concept in the beginning, and north-south. And also but now we are thinking more about the infrastructure and how we can use the former infrastructure to actually organize some points that we have we need to solve. As you see, the grid from Kvadraturen, who also can be found here, can actually be a nice way to introduce the city to from the western part. And yeah, that's where we are.
So I'm presenting on behalf of my group. We are Even Abraham, actually. Malin and me, Hannah. And we are working with a future scenario with the train set in this new culvert structure. And the opening of this culvert actually is right there at the end of this axis that stretches through our transect from the fields in the north to the Lake Mjøsa in the south. And this imaginary axis that was imagined by Sverre Pedersen in 1924 has today come to define the travel to and from Hamar. So Vangsveien, you see here, is one of the city's main arteries. It is defined by cars and traffic noise, and it has these large barriers and these large voids along it. So you have gray asphalt parking lots, and you have a scarcely used town square, and also this future train tunnel that will obstruct the view and the movement towards the water. So this fragmentation of the townscape is dividing the city, and you have the city shopping area divided into two, with the mall, the mall up here and the city center with the shopping street down there, and people are not moving in between them. So the shops in the city center are struggling, and there is no access to the waterfront. And you also have the problem of these large impermeable surfaces here in black that hinders an effective water drainage system. So we want to focus on the axis. And we want to do that by firstly creating this continuing visual connection along the axis, along Vangsveien, using paving, vegetation, and also surface water systems. And then secondly, we want to fill in these voids with inviting functions, and then together create a contiguity between these spaces. And by doing this, we aspire to vitalize the city center as a whole and make a stronger connection to the waterfront. So one tool in this will be to revise the traffic system. We want to move the heavy traffic outside the city, and then in the city center have a shared space model with pedestrians, bicycles, and slow moving cars so that they can exist together there. And in the voids along the axis, we want here in the north to make a public parking and public transport facility that can serve the whole city center and hopefully decrease the amount of cars going into the city center. And secondly, we want to make a space for large public events. We imagine something quite flexible, perhaps in the form of like a bazaar-like structure with a lightweight roof that could be extended to make, for example, a concert hall. Then we want to vitalize the city square and play on its piazza-like town qualities and historic qualities there. And then we have this huge area around the train culvert opening. The train comes in here, where we want to place a large public function, especially since it's right next to the city train station. So we imagine something like a university campus that will make sure that there are quite a lot of people there through large portions of the day. And lastly, stretching out into Mjøsa, we imagine a bathing facility for the public. But let's move back here for a second. this will be our primary area of focus along the axis. It's where this axis crashes into this new diagonal barrier created by the culvert. And we hope that placing a university campus there will somehow help to connect or mediate between the city center quadrature and the train, and then Mjøsa at the end. And we want to build on both sides of the train track to help the connection to the waterfront, but also integrate the train into the design and make it something that gives the place identity rather than just being this problem. And here, of course, investigating the sightlines, the original sightlines from the quadrature, and the water drainage, and new and existing and new roads will be important. And we've looked into some different shape and form strategies, some playing on existing lines and some contrasting these. And we are looking into the sections. We propose making this a new slope here from the quadrature in the city center up to the culvert opening where it meets the flood barrier. And we would like to integrate the buildings into this new landscape so that they can help convey the different levels and also then help create new outdoor areas for recreation. So we've been looking into this in a sketch model. And here we've taken into account mainly the sightlines and the new road from the train station, which is here. And this is how far we've come so far, and well, we're quite excited to see where this axis will lead us further. So thank you.
Hello. My name is Fredrik, and let's see. I've been working with this project with Andrea, Charlotte, and Victoria. And we are working with a future growth scenario. So from a bigger scale, we looked at the landscape, and it was quite dynamic with hills, valleys, plains, knolls, rivers, and we found it quite inspiring to go further down into the ground. So here is a map from the transect showing, as you can see here, there is a limestone ridge going down, and the light gray points show the historical islands that was in Hamar before, as well as the old waterfront here. The dark gray shows the fillers that is added over the years, and the orange layer shows the pollution, mainly from the railroad and the roads at this area. So yeah, I will come back to this later. So we zoomed a bit in on the Skivarmen to look into the ecology. As you can see, it's quite yeah, it's quite vegetative at the area where it was the limestone ore goes here. We also have the nature reserve at this area, which is quite important for us because it's so close to our site, and also the flood area. It's quite flat. So this map shows the public program within and outside of our transect. And as you can see, it's quite lacking public programming inside our transect. It's a lot towards the city center. Yeah, from the interviews and the analysis, we found out that families who live in this area, they live there for a shorter amount of time. You have a kindergarten located here, but when the children grow up, the families tend to move out because it's quite trafficated and quite yeah, it's not easy to walk. It's not a lot of walking streets, but it's a lot of cars in this area. The elementary school is located quite far away from our transect. Yeah, so we went in to transect trying to understanding and identifying the urban morphology. In red, we can see the preserved buildings, and the boxes show the outlines of the Pedersen and Røyem map. But most importantly for us, we have this this between space where the structures we have the quite undefined areas at these triangular shapes, and it's quite fragmented as well from the Røyem and Pedersen map. Yeah, so here we can see a section from our transect with the more industrial at the top, and we have this beautiful park at the top. And as we move down, we have more villas and gardens into the more block structure. And here we have this infrastructure railway, which is kind of a barrier for the city down to the waterfront. Yes, by identifying historical and structural values and characteristics within the transect, this has created a clear outline for our areas and areas of focus, as you can see down here. The waterfront and the contiguous path of public spaces. We want to connect this space as a public space and connect the movement as well to this strategic point with the railroad, as well as connecting it to the terminal of the buses and the Skiblander boat or ferry to make this kind of a central point for the city where you first come with the train and yeah, to so here is the concept diagram showing kind of a movement through this park and through these areas, which are quite fragmented, and the connection between the railroad station and down to the waterfront. So in our growth scenario, we aim to have a parallel focus on both the public program and the process of densification to create a sustainable solution. So we define these spaces through densification. So if we go back and look at this map, we can see there are a lot of holes and spaces for densification. And we aim to strategically densify these areas to define our projects. Yes. So as you can see here, there are islands, and I can go a bit further into it at the end, maybe. So yeah, and here is a potential solution where we connect the boat in closer to the station, as well as the small boats. Here is a proposal for densifying, showing possible solutions and areas for us to work further on. Here we have it on a sketch model. So as you can see, all the green ones are filling in the empty spaces and the spaces we think are suitable for densification. And as you can see, it's quite a lot. So it's a lot of potential in this area. So we worked a bit in model, trying to define our connecting point, trying to work a bit with the islands, which I'll go further into. Here is a section showing this strategic place, connecting it with a bridge, and maybe integrating it with the landscape, using the landscape in flood to provide flood. Also connecting the boats closer to this center piece. Yeah, so I started with the pollution, as you can see over here. So our strategy is kind of over time to work with a polluted area and to take the masses, the fill masses you saw on the previous map, and to bring back the historical islands, and to use the masses and to fill them in along the coast to make a constructed landscape to prevent the flooding, as well as giving this place back to the natural kind of habitats, also as for human. And further on, we plan to make a green belt to improve the soil of the polluted ground. And over time, maybe this will improve the soil. And then we will go into the strategic densification of the neighborhood. And at the very end, when the soil is hopefully cleansed and good, we can go further into densification at the waterfront, which is kind of a long-term strategy. So when we're finished, we hope to bring the coastline, or not the coastline, but the waterfront a bit back to nature, making it a nice place for boat life combined with a like center point. And yeah, this is the Skiblander boat. Yeah, thanks.
Hello. Okay. Here we go. My name is Johannes, and I've been working with Julia and Davis and Thea on this project, which we like to call Infrastructure in Collaboration. We have looked at transect number 5, which is to the easternmost part of Hamar, sort of the entrance to the city, coming from the bigger roads up to the north. And it's bordered to the south, obviously, by Mjøsa, and to the east by Åkersvika, which is really important for migrating birds. It's quite large, our transect, and it's very varied in both topography and scale and typologies. And there's a lot of infrastructure with railways and roads and a lot of stuff dividing sort of the residential areas with Mjøsa, which is obviously very important for the population of Hamar. The area in between Briskeby, this area, and the waterfront is filled largely with infrastructure. This is sort of today's situation with the railroads. And there's a lot of these undefined in-between areas. And the proposal from Bane Nor in the future scenario will create even more of these sort of inaccessible areas. And our project aims to use these areas to create a friendlier and more accessible area. And we want to sort of utilize the land in a more deliberate way and not shy away from the infrastructure, but use it to create a new continuous space across and underneath all the new infrastructure. We also want to look at the potential of fast and slow traffic sort of merging on an elevated level and using all the rooftops and bridges in the new proposal to sort of create this new continuous landscape. And these two diagrams together show this approach on like a multi-level landscape which connects strategically in a few points vertically on this new sort of floating ground level above ground. And this thing could also create some really great viewpoints and really great experiences sort of going over all this beautiful new landscape. This is also shown here in this section where you can move underneath the railroad through some of the old historical buildings, and where the topography allows it, even go above the railroad, which is here, and create this new ground level atop the old ground. The area, as I said, is made largely of fillings put in place to create this flat land for all the big box stuff. And we want to bring the water line further into the city to create more waterfront and sort of improve and grow the natural habitats for the mostly rare birds and listed species.
So you can see we go from this water line to this much improved, larger waterfront. And also flooding is obviously a huge issue in all of Hamar, but especially in these fill-in areas where you can see floods over different periods of time, with the ones going furthest into the country being the 500 years flood. And by creating this new waterfront, we can sort of relocate the masses to create a new flood barrier, which can create sort of larger safe areas from the flood. And this, combined with the new infrastructure, which is also on a new raised level, will create this new sort of safe area. And here you can see how the water level, the difference in water level, can affect the landscape. And it has quite a huge difference throughout the season of several meters. So there's a big potential in creating this dynamic landscape that can change throughout the seasons. And at the worst part, some of these islands might be flooded, but that's okay, because I created this new safe space in the back. And also, in today's situation, it's quite difficult to move around as a pedestrian. So in our new proposal, we want to activate the whole area and make a big open pedestrian area where we can sort of move again below the railways, over the railways, and use some of the buildings to sort of mitigate between the different levels, and use also the topography where we can to sort of make this transition smoother. And this is, yeah, a simple plan sort of showing our new road structure, which is not that much smaller, but maybe more compacted in a way, where we can create these points of contact between the different levels. And we worked a lot in model to sort of understand the different both water levels and the different heights of the buildings, and try to sort of mitigate these different factors without shying away from them and trying to hide the road structure. And these are some concepts that we would like to work on a bit further, maybe allowing the flooding to come into the landscape in a precise way, using pedestrian roads in the treetops, and also using the buildings as part of the landscape. And these are some pictures of our models, trying to show more of an eye-level view of this whole infrastructure spaghetti. I think that's as good a place to stop as any. Thank you.
Tusen takk. De er veldig flinke, da. We are very proud of them. Skal vi snakke norsk eller engelsk? Hvor er vi igjen?
Jeg tenker, Franco Gillardi, du har jo fulgt kurset litt, og en dag fulgt kurset litt. Du har sett prosjekter før, og hva skal vi se her med mikrofon til Franco? Ja. Hva dine, altså når du ser metoden å jobbe med, altså vi har jo snakket i løpet av de 2 dagene her, og så har han jo snakket om å bruke og ha en helhetlig design mellom infrastruktur, arkitektur og landskap, og det å bruke infrastruktur som en mulighet. Men når du ser prosjektet, altså hva har du tenkt? Det har vært interessant også å høre dine tanker.
Jeg tror at generelt, jeg synes at nå også tiden dere har for å utvikle prosjektet begrenset, ikke sant? Så jeg tror at nå det viktig at dere kan ikke løse alle problemene, og jeg skjønner at det lett å bli fanget I det, ikke sant? Urbanisme, arkitektur, infrastruktur veldig kompleks, eller et system av problemer oppå hverandre. Men jeg synes det lurt å velge nå et problem, og ikke kanskje 2 eller 3 per team. Og det lettere å ta et konsept som litt mer tydelig, basert på you cannot solve all the problems, ikke så fort. Så jeg synes at det har vært gruppe kunne kanskje fokusere litt på et ting. Det ikke alle må gjøre, for eksempel jobbe med flåd. Kanskje en team kan gjøre det, og eventuelt kombinere de 2 ideene på slutten, ikke sant, for det 2 team. Så dere får mer tid til å gå I en redning, og litt mer I dybde, fordi hvis ikke det risiko at det blir bare analyser igjen, ikke sant? Det mye analyse og ting som relevant, interessant, absolutt. Men dere kommer ikke til den designfasen på en måte, fordi det ikke nok tid da. Jeg tenker at dette prosjektet siste, eller den gangen vi snakket om, det handlet om en archipelago, en permeable barrier, som jeg synes selv veldig fint, spennende konsept. Men nå, etter presentasjonen I dag, det høres det som ja, det permeable, men det også hardt. Jeg klarte ikke å forstå hvis det en enn den andre. Og I tillegg dere har en annen prosjekt som handler om den flyvende system. Kanskje dere må velge en av de, for eksempel. Prosjektet før dette, jeg synes at det en veldig fin tegning som du kalte concept diagram. Den concept diagram faktisk prosjektet, synes jeg. Det underlag til en veldig flott landskapsprosjekt, og ikke gjøre som vi med de andre tema, men utvikle det videre. Jobbe med bebyggelse rundt det landskapet som en supporting argument. Men ikke sant, kan ikke være på alle steder, ikke sant? Det it's too much. Det generelt, ja.
For der, Halvor, når dere jobber I prosjekt med prosjekt som urbanisme, og ikke plan, for dere har sett en transekta og en større skala, og så kan du fortelle litt om hvordan man bruker prosjektet, hvordan prosjektet og den større skalaen virker inn på hverandre.
Vi har sett eksempler på det egentlig både I går og I dag, hvordan man forsøker å si at med utgangspunkt I den fysiske virkeligheten, med utgangspunkt I fysiske modeller, som også Franco var inne på, med utgangspunkt I en eller annen form for sånn fellesnevner som disse aktørene kan samle seg rundt, så har man jo mulighet til å adressere en hel rekke problemstillinger I omegn eller på territoriet. I vårt kurs så jobber vi hele tiden I flere skalaer på det vi kaller territoriell skala og det vi kaller lokal skala. Og så foregår mye av utvikling og læringen gjennom den prosessen å undersøke aksjon, reaksjon knyttet til hvordan et prosjekt fester seg. Og det på en måte det Jens Kårning, han kaller det urbane prosjekter, ikke urbanistiske prosjekter, siden vi nevnte han I går, men det på en måte den urbane prosjektets rolle da. Ikke bare at det kan, men også at vi evner å kartlegge og anvende et prosjekts potensiale I en større bysammenheng. Og da vi tilbake til den vi må snakke sammen diskusjonen, det vi tror på GK5, det vi simulerer I studio, men også det vi forsøker å gjøre opp mot kommunen, jo å si at praktisk talt alle prosjekter kan ha en urban funksjon. Den må kartlegges og anvendes, og så må man møte med det man kaller stakeholders eller brukere, alt fra skoleelever til rektorer, til næringslivsinvolverte, til politikere, ikke sant? Og diskutere hva det faktisk betyr å sette et prosjekt ned I byen. Og dette jo helt sånn grunnleggende arkitektur. Det klart det betyr noe å sette et prosjekt ned et sted, om du gjør det på et kart, eller om du gjør det I en modell, eller om du gjør det I virkeligheten. Det man må gjøre jo å bruke det som et omdreiningspunkt da, for de diskusjonene som vi har hatt der. I hvert fall så mener jeg at det den kanskje aller enkleste, billigste og mest effektive løsningen å si, hvis vi skal snakke mer sammen, la oss gjøre det rundt modellen. Og det har vi kanskje ikke nok da formater eller fora for å gjøre?
For da, som jeg forstår det, så det sånn da at en bruker prosjektet, altså den fysiske prosjektet, som en måte å restrukturere en større skala. Den sammenheng mellom det fysiske prosjektet og en ny forbindelse mellom altså den større narrativet for byen, altså den større forbindelsen mellom Hamar og Mjøsa,
Ja, den kan være helt banal, ikke sant? I sånn byhistorie at du fysisk forbinder, lager et romforløp, setter inn en funksjon i sånn klassisk morfologisk analyse, eller den kan virke på det strategiske politiske nivået over, knyttet til programmering, endog ikonografi, altså symbolbetydning. Det nok lag, og det klart det mange måter å analysere byen på, og vi har i de siste årene sett særlig samfunnsvitenskapene være veldig flinke til å jobbe målrettet med hvordan man gjør byen operasjonell som forskningsobjekt ut ifra noen nyttefag. Det vi står litt tilbake på i arkitektur og planlegging og landskap, å lage de syntesene av det vi vet, metoder vi har, og så klare å bruke det for å diskutere konkrete, stedspesifikke caser, fordi de ikke bare redegjør for en tenkt framtid eller en tenkt nåtid, men den der overgangsverktøyet, det vi kan anvende for å komme oss fra i dag til i morgen, og det sånn sett planlegge byen fremover. Det ikke rocket science det her liksom, men det forbausende hvordan vi som arkitekter og landskapsarkitekter ikke har helt evnet da, å merge dette og få til det samarbeiderne, både med planleggerne selvfølgelig, men også med beslutningstagerne og politikerne.
Jeg tror det som jeg har likt veldig godt med å se diskusjonene rundt den prosjektet og hvordan en kan bruke studentprosjekt. De har jo ikke jobbet så lenge med selve prosjektskalaen, de har vært i et par uker egentlig. Men det som har vært interessant, tenker jeg, det hvordan en kan bruke, hvordan en har brukt prosjektet som et dialogutgangspunkt og med dem som har vært invitert fra Europa, altså med Annie og med Marcel, til å bruke prosjekter som utgangspunkt i å snakke om hvordan vi jobber sammen her i Norge om byen, og hvordan en jobber sammen om byen andre sted, altså som i Løven eller Ildenant. Og på en måte for å bruke prosjektet og den fabuleringen rundt landskapet og byen til å se hvordan en på en måte har jobbet litt sammen med dem i det for å finne overføringspunkt, altså for å finne måter for dem å forstå hvordan vi jobber, og vi forstår hvordan de jobber, for å finne senere metoder for å kanskje lære av hverandre. Og det tenker jeg at vi ser frem til. Dette er jo en smakebit, men ser frem til utstillingen egentlig i Hamar på Bylaben, der den 10. desember, der vi vil jo da ha foredraget som har vært holdt gjennom høsten, der til stede, og en kan se studentene sitt arbeid gjennom hele høsten da ferdig. Jeg tenker at med det så sier jeg egentlig takk for i dag. Vi skal videre til møte opp på Ensjø, var det klokka 2. Møte på T-banestasjonen der, og så vil vi snakke om den strategiske planverktøyet VEPOR på Ensjø. Ensjø en del av den første VEPORen som nå stort sett gjennomført, og en del av den Oslo-modellen og den norske uttestingen av strategiske verktøy. Så vel møtt der, og så takk for i dag og for å være her sammen med oss på VG, og tusen takk til studentene. Ja.